Number 2. Mr. Malik allocates 3,000 ringgit to purchase X copies of science reference book and Y copies of mathematics reference book for the school library. The average cost per copy of science reference book and mathematics reference book are 30 and 25 respectively. The number of science reference book purchased is at least 20 copies and the number of mathematics reference book purchased is at least 10 copies more than the science reference book. Write down three linear inequalities that satisfy all the given conditions other than x greater than 0 and y greater than 0. Okay, so the number of mathematics book, we call it X. Sorry, science book, we call it X because they say copy of science reference book X, Y copy of mathematics book. So science, number of copies, X. Mathematics, number of copies, Y. So the total number of books, X plus Y. Okay, so this is the expression that we can form. Next one. The cost for science book is 30 ringgit. 30 ringgit is for one copy only, right? So let's say if we have X copies, it will be 30X. The total cost is 30X. Then for mathematics book, each copy is 25 ringgit. So we have Y copies. So we have to use 25 multiplied with Y. So this is the total cost for the maths reference book. Okay. Now the total of all the reference book will be 30x plus 25y. 30x plus 25y. And we have constraint. You're only given 3,000 ringgit. So this total cost it must be less than 3,000 ringgit. You cannot buy more than 3,000 ringgit. So the first inequality that we can form is this one. 30x plus 25y less than or equal to 3,000. So this is the first inequality. And I try to change this inequality into the form y equals to mx plus c. Why change to y equals to mx plus c? Because I want to use the gradient to plot the line, right? So after changing, I see, oh, the y-intercept is 120. X-intercept is 100. How to get the x-intercept? You look at this equation here, the first inequality here, and I'm going to put y equals to 0. So when y equals to 0, 30x, 3,000. So what is the value of x? X is 100, right? So x is 100. So that's why I have this y, x-intercept 100, right? Y-intercept from where? Y-intercept comes from the equation. Okay, so keep this x-intercept, y-intercept, and the gradient. Next, the number of science reference book is at least 20 copies. Now, why the science reference book is actually X? Science reference book is X, must be at least 20. So at least means it must be greater or equal to 20. So that's how I get this inequality here. Okay, next one. The number of maths reference book is at least 10 copies more than the science reference book. So maths reference book is called Y, right? 10 copies more than the science reference. So I minus the science reference book, right? At least 10 copies more. So must be greater or equal to 10. Okay. So once again, maths reference book must be more than the science reference book. So I use y minus x. This will show us how much the y is more than the x. Now, how much is it? They say at least 10 copies. So must be greater or equal to 10. So that's how I get this second inequality, right? Lastly, it is the cost, right? The cost. Cost. The cost of reference book, science 30, maths 25. So this is the cost. And we have only 3,000, so it must be less than 3,000. Or this one already mentioned. Okay, so this one mentioned earlier already. Right? Then now, what should we say? Obtain the minimum cost to purchase the book. Minimum cost. So the cost is actually this one. The cost is actually this one. So we want to minimize this. We want to minimize this. This is our objective function. Now the objective function happens to be the same as our constraint. Can you notice? Did you notice this? Yes or no? Our constraint here, the cost must be minimum. But the cost is one of our constraint. Can you see the expression is the same? This one is equals to less than or equal to 3,000. But this one, we call it K. Any problem with this? Any question you want to ask regarding this?